Hey, Steap Talk podcast fans, Danny here. Really excited to welcome you guys back. This is the intro for part 2 of our interview with Chrys Gorman. As stated in the previous episode, there were some technical difficulties, so we did have to split this into 2 different parts. So I hope you guys enjoy this second interview that we did with Chrys Gorman. What's up, Steap Talk podcast fans? Hey guys, this is a second intro for a video that you've already seen a little bit of. We had some technical difficulties. By we, I mean me. A storm kind of wiped us out, so we're back. Okay, so we had been talking a little bit before about the evaluating of Lego and what that looked like as a manager versus as a franchise owner. And even since we recorded this, some like crazy information has just come out on Echo Base Network. Love their channel so much. And I think the BAM map as well has found information. So I think that this actually helps a lot of what we're about to talk about. So go ahead, Chrys, let us know.
Yeah, it does. It helps in the context of like what we were talking about and then being able to add more context. So we'll start in one, like spot A instead of point D. I caught the Echo Base Network video this morning talking about it, but it was the BAM map that had posted the corporate provided buy calculator. And I talked a bit about that like previously when we talked yesterday, about how it would assign the values and then kind of do that math and give you the evaluation for cash or credit, high, low, that. But there were also like aspects of it that I didn't really want to talk about, didn't really want to be the one to introduce. But now it's out there in the public. No comments on how it got into the public. Like they talk about how they got it. There's because I don't have access to it anymore. It's on it was on the store's Google Drive. And so that was one of those things that I fully lost access to. But it kind of goes to a point I've made before in previous shows about I understand boycotting. I understand letting your wallet speak for your values. I completely get that and I support that. And you and I talked the other day when we met about the inherent hypocrisy where you can't be all good. There's no ethical consumerism in the US in any way. It doesn't matter if you grow your own food, make your own clothing. At some point, you're consuming something that has been created or generated by exploiting other people. It's a fact of life in a capitalistic society that has allowed capitalism to run rampant. But within the context of this entire situation, there are individual store owners that are stuck. They cannot get out of their contracts. They have taken out loans. They have mortgaged their houses. They are at risk of absolute financial devastation. And I get that. They are at risk of the same thing happening to them that happened to me and to Relic and to the other stores that we know about. And they, a few of them have talked about the limits of what they can do standing against corporate's behavior. And the buy calculator is a very timely, perfect example of that. You can use that calculator. And I'm going to use a specific example because you haven't had a chance to watch the video. So you're kind of going into this blind on the technicalities of the calculator. And I'm presuming most of your viewers will as well. So there's a setting within that calculator. Once you get all your stuff in, you can go through and individually mark items that you're putting in there. Let's say it's a bunch of used sets. And you can mark it as, I don't remember the exact terms, but it's essentially like a hot seller, something that's absolutely not going to sit on the shelf. It's going to be a popular item. And if you click that, it bumps your range up a little bit, gives you a little bit more money. And then there's kind of like a mid line where it's like, it's okay. It's not going to go right out, but it's not going to sit for a while. And that bumps it up like a little bit less. But then there's a specific one on there that's termed dust collector. And the video that I watched with Echo Base this morning, they were particularly talking about one family's interaction with one BAM store, one
Wow.
Bricks and Minifigs location. And they had taken this stuff in, and the employee at that store had used that dust collector designation to devalue the value. And they told him it was because the set was dusty, and they would have to disassemble the set and then clean it and reassemble. And that's why they were offering less, which there are several things wrong with that statement.
Yeah.
The dust collector designation itself is something that you would use if that set was going to sit and literally collect dust, not sell. It's not a dirty set. There's an entirely separate designation for the cleanliness level of the items. And,
Right.
but the dust collector itself, that is like, how well is that set going to sell? If I were going to use that, if I were going to use that in my store, which I never used it, I never used any of those. My offer was always based on this, like the same values. I didn't use it. It never made that big enough of a difference. And the time consuming of going through every item that you're buying and picking and choosing those, which it for me, it never made sense. I'm not saying it's wrong to use it in the context of how this store did. I disagree. And it would be very, very rare that a set would come in that you'd actually disassemble and then clean and put back together. The time consumingness of that, it's not worth it. I would tell my customers when they were bringing a set in, the set is really dirty and I'm going to have to take it apart and clean it. Therefore, the amount I can give you is going to be much less. Now, if you want to take that home and clean it yourself and bring it back, I'll be able to give you more. And then let the customer decide based on the actual facts. Give them the information. Same thing if somebody came in with a set that wasn't built. It was in pieces. Okay, if it's not assembled, I don't know it's going to have all the pieces, so I'm going to offer you less. If you take it home and build it, this is how much more I'm going to be able to give you. It is your job as a store owner to educate your staff and then to educate your customer base. You're running a Lego store. It is an educational toy. It boggles my mind that you would go into this business and take advantage of people instead of taking the opportunity to educate. And using something like dust collector to tell somebody, we would have dirty bulk come in all the time, and sometimes it would be so dirty that we would take the loss and we would donate it. And sometimes it would be just a little dusty and we'd go through and clean it. Sometimes it would be not we're going to donate it, but you soak it overnight in a tub of soapy water and then let it dry and clean it off. Sets came in dusty. There are other ways to clean them. You use we used a clean paintbrush to get all the little details, or the air canister. There are countless ways to clean those without taking advantage of your customer base see, it's going to change the context of what we're talking about today, because that goes to such a bigger issue that people are going to, criticize my business acumen, right? The way I ran my business. And we talked about that previously, right? Good faith criticism. I'm never going to be a billionaire. I'm never going to be a millionaire, because I don't hide it. I am a democratic socialist. I believe it is the responsibility of every single person in a society to look out for the rest of that society. That is a responsibility we have as beings on this earth. That is
Right.
how almost every single species of creature and plant and bacteria, everything works on this planet. You work as a
Yeah.
larger ecosystem. That is how we have survived and evolved as a species.
Right. Right.
That is I believe it is our moral responsibility. And that is very contrary to how I was raised. I was raised wealth equals status and status equals morality. And your
Right.
moral worthiness was based on your bank account. And
Right.
I think we have seen the corruption and the evilness that happens when we look at people that have wealth and power. And, people have made the comments to me, how can you be a socialist and a business person? It's really easy. It's actually really easy to operate an ethical business. I was in the business of serving my community and my customers and educating and making them happy, not in the business of exploiting my community for every penny that I could get.
Right.
It's,
And it seems really exploitative in that way as
yes.
well. One of the things that you said yesterday, that I really appreciated was that you felt that it was not necessarily the responsibility of the customer to know what they
Yeah.
have. And I hear that all the time in
Yeah.
different live streams. I think even Les said it this morning, where
Yeah.
you're like, you need to know what you have. Now,
Yeah.
trust me, do I think that that is something that I should know? Absolutely. But
Yeah.
I'm also not an expert and I don't
Yeah.
know. So I'm envisioning myself, right? Whether it's like, I think the biggest thing that I would have to equate it to is like my fiance is really big into Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about magic
Yeah.
cards. And universe forbid anything happened to him. And I asked him, I was like, what do you want me to do with my magic cards? He's like, I need you to make sure that anything that is valuable, find out how much it's worth. And I
Yeah.
was like, how do I do that? And he's like, well,
Exactly.
there's a couple of he literally tells me, he's like, there's a store. I trust this particular store for them to tell you how much it's
Yeah.
actually worth
Yeah.
because you need to know that stuff. And he's like, he's so nice to me. He's respectful. He's like, I know you're gonna do your due diligence, but you need to find someone who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
fully agree because I don't know. So I'm imagining myself taking this, I'm envisioning myself in tears, right? Because I'm like, I need to know how much these are worth, which I'm sure happens all the time. I'm so sure like that same situation probably happens a lot with valuable collectibles, whether it's
Yeah.
Pokemon cards, Magic cards, baseball cards,
Yeah.
Lego, or anything else. I want to be able to go to a place and trust that they're going to have my
Yeah.
best interest and say, okay, this person had something happen. They came into this collection. They are not an expert. How can I help them know?
Yeah.
And so I know I keep hearing these business owners like yes, I know these people they owned their own businesses, whether it was the Bricks and Minifigs franchise itself or people who owned a similar type of store. I
Mm-hmm.
get that from a business owner perspective. That's where you're coming from. I'm not a business owner. I'll say that time and time again. As a customer, I want to be able to trust you.
Yes. And there's so many factors of that. When I came on, when I switched from assistant manager to manager, the store had already gathered a reputation in just a few short months under the previous manager of lowballing offers. And when you operate under the business model that a Bricks and Minifigs operates under, if your community knows that they're going to walk in there and you're going to lowball them, and most of your profit margin, 90% of your profit margin is used or bulk or retired stuff that you're not getting from Toy House, you're not getting from a box store. If that's 90% of your profit margin and the community, the narrative in the community is you can't be trusted, you have no business. That was one of the very first things I had to do as a manager within the limits of what corporate would allow me to do to reverse that reputation, that stigma, and bring people back in trusting that they could come into me, and even if I can't offer you what you think, like what you know the value is, because I still have to make a profit. You can come in and say, I know this set is worth exactly this much, and I'll tell you absolutely it is, but I can't buy it for you for that much. I can buy it for you at this percentage, but being able to like come in and know that the person you're dealing with is going to be honest with you about that. Otherwise, we've seen what happens if you lose your reputation for honesty and integrity. And I don't, for me, community is more important than, I'm never going to be a millionaire, but there's a roof over my head, there's food on the table, and I can occasionally, go to Costco and splurge on a giant stuffed raccoon. And that's enough for me. That's enough because I never have to lay down at night and settle within myself with the knowledge that what I have gained, I have taken advantage of somebody else to gain that. That's just, it's not who I am. There's no amount of wealth that would turn me into that person. And I don't understand how you work around Lego and you work around families and children. And I don't want to judge, but on the other hand, it goes back to what I've said about the individual franchises. I urge people out there that have relationships with their local stores. Those are the things you should be evaluating. Even if you don't feel right spending your money, if you know your local store owner is an ethical business person, if you have that relationship and you know they are there to serve the community and not to serve themselves, even if you don't want to spend your money to have it go to royalties, which I can understand, but that's a situation in which leave a good review or reach out to that store and ask them, how can I help? What can I do that will help you based on your knowledge of the individual store owner? Like, I'm not going to encourage people to not boycott, because I understand in a capitalist society, that is one of the biggest powers that we have. But on the other hand, I will say again what I've said before, stores going bankrupt only profits corporate. They then get a chance to resell that store. You're going to harm and punish the families and the individual store owners. And in the end, it's going to go back into corporate's control. And it all comes down to a personal relationship with your local store and knowing who they are. Is your store the kind of one that's going to tell somebody, well, this is dusty or this isn't worth this amount, or, oh, you have a figure in here that you don't know what it is, but I do. I'm not going to tell you what it's worth. Judge your store owners based on their own values and your own experiences and their place within the community. Because I know from my time there, which stores I would say maybe like it's okay to not reach out to them. But I also know what store owners are doing everything they can in the boundaries of what they can do right now. So that's my last, you can be ethical and still run a business. Like, you can be moral and serve your community and still make a profit. You have to choose why you're doing what you're doing. Like, that's, but I am, people are going to come out and criticize, and I'm sure they are. And there are people that take their stuff into those stores and they know exactly what they have. And then there are people, the hypothetical situation with you, with your husband, I've seen that. I had somebody come in whose brother-in-law had passed away, and he had a storage unit of sets that he had collected. He had no idea what he had, but he was, looking to sell them for his sister and coming in and going, I don't know what the value is, but can you help me? Yeah, I can help you.
Yeah.
In his case, it was a bunch of retired. It was a lot of Batman, a lot of DC, which was really unusual. There was a time when we had just an enormous, probably, I think it was something like 200 sets of retired DC sets, which was, I gave them the best offer I could. And some of those we didn't sell for a year because they just weren't popular. But you still give the best
Right.
offer you can, and you tell people why you're doing it. So yeah.
Right. Which I really appreciate the explanation too, because I know that it can get lost on folks. Like, I know it's upsetting when you're like, I've had this video game and it holds a lot of sentimental value to me, but I
Yeah.
go over to like GameStop and GameStop offers me like pennies for
Yeah.
it. And that's just, I mean, I know that's a more extreme example, but just the
Yeah.
explanation of, or like a pawn shop, why can they not offer you the exact amount? Well,
Yeah.
it's because they do have to make a profit,
Yeah.
and the profit is necessary to keep the lights on. So
Yeah.
it's like a give and take, and it also takes the responsibility off of you as the customer who's bringing it in. You now don't have to go through all of the difficulties of selling this, which everybody has the capability of doing. Just sometimes it's like, I don't have the
Yeah.
capacity to sell this. So I'm going to say, okay, I know it's worth this much, and I'm willing to take a little bit of a, I don't, maybe not necessarily loss is the
Yeah.
best word, but for lack of a better word, I'm willing to take a little bit of a loss.
Less of a less of a profit, right?
Yes.
Because we're still talking about stuff that, for the most part, you're selling it for more than you purchased it for. There are
Right.
exceptions to that. We talk about dust collectors for Salem. That was things like, we talked about the friend sets, we talked about the city sets, the Mario sets. But as a store owner, once I got out of management and into owning, I was also able to tailor how we were buying and what we were buying and how much we were buying to the store's needs itself. A city set comes in with a police car and a helicopter and a bunch of figures and some dogs and, the build itself. And it's priced at $150 on Bricklink. It's never going to sell for that much because the target audience for that are going to be young kids whose parents don't want to pay that amount for something they know their kid's going to just disassemble. So you take the motorcycle, you take the cars, you take the helicopters, you take the little ambulance, the little truck, you separate those all out. We had a whole wall of bagged vehicles. We put them in bags and priced them between, $5 and $25. And
Yeah.
so you take a little police motorcycle, and sell it individually for $5 because the kid really wants a motorcycle, but his parents don't
Oh
want to
yeah.
pay $150 to get the whole set. Same thing with the airport sets, the airplanes. If you put an airport set up there with a big airplane, it would sit for months, and we'd eventually mark it down, mark it down, mark it down. You take all the figures out and put them in the Build-A-Fig table. You put the bulk in the bulk tables, and then you sell just the airplane by itself. It sells almost right away. We had one customer, she would
Right.
come in with her kids every single week just to find out if we had any new airplanes or helicopters in. Every week
I
that
love
kid
that.
would buy every single airplane or helicopter. And so you learn to tailor it like that. So somebody comes in with a friend set and you look at it and go, this friend set says it's, $9.99. It's a small set, but there's 5 dogs in it that are going to go in the animal case at $5 a piece. There's, 4 figures that are going to go in the Build-A-Fig table at $5 a piece. There's a bunch of plants. You learn to evaluate it based on the entirety of what you're going to do with the set instead of the set itself. And
Right.
that's the nuance that dust collector, that's the nuance that misses. Relic has talked
Right.
about the things in his store that didn't sell well. And a set can come in and I can know the set is not going to sell, but I can also look at how much bulk it is and how much it's going to sell just based on the volume of the set. And
Right.
oftentimes it would bump the value up. So I'm going to bump the value up on a set. Let's say a set comes in and Bricklink puts it at $40, but it's a dense set with a bunch of, city figs or whatever. And I go through and I know if I break it down, the value of that's going to be closer to 70 or 80. I can offer you more. And
Yeah.
it's things like that. Why are you there's nuance that's being missed, and it's also nuance
Yeah.
that I don't think a lot of people want to, in my previous position, want to talk about,
Right.
because it's the you know it's like we were talking about before, like the baker giving away the recipe. You don't want
Right.
there are people that don't want the customer base to know what goes on behind that computer screen, where those numbers come from. And there's a certain
Right.
aspect of that that makes sense. Um, you know, we never really told percentages. Somebody would say, they'd bring in a set and I'd say, here's what I can offer you, but never an exact percentage. And that's because the next time they come in, they'll say, well, last time you said you were going to give me 65% of its value, and I brought in another set. So why is the number 50% instead of 65? And then, trying to explain to them, this is a different set. This is a different,
Right.
entirely different, the popularity, the size, the condition of it, any of those factors. So we never really gave direct percentages because those are going to fluctuate based on the source stock, based on the condition, based on all those other factors. But being able to explain, like, I feel like you have a responsibility to explain to your customer base why you're buying it, how you're buying,
Yeah.
as much as you can. And it's just, yeah. So that video this morning,
Right.
seeing that video this morning felt really timely, knowing that we were going to come back and pick up talking about this.
Right.
Yeah.
It worked out. I'm excited to watch it because
Yeah.
I like it'll give more perspective for everything that you've already talked about.
Yeah.
And I'm like also wondering too, and if you can't answer this question, definitely, don't. But we're as a franchise owner, like, do you know if people like would you know if somebody went over to, like, let's say the Canby location, got a number, would you know what they were quoted
No.
before they came over to you? Like, was there an internal dialogue?
No. No. There was nothing. It From my understanding, based on corporate statement of like the changes they're making, and a couple of things that Relic has said about he would take stuff in and then corporate would ask him to send it to different stores. I don't know how that works any longer. But there was no connection in the system whatsoever with other locations. Somebody could come in and say, Canby offered me this much. Can you do any better than that? But I would have no way of knowing. But the other side of that was we are a small location. Salem Kaiser was a small location, and there
Yeah.
were people that would you know take their stuff to Canby or to Portland specifically because it would be a larger location, and they're possibly able to offer them more. And but there was no, unless the customer was telling me that, I had no way of knowing that. Yeah. I don't
Interesting.
know if
So
it's
it
I
so
don't know if that's changed. That is
yeah.
it's been a year and a half. So yeah.
Which is totally fair. I mean, everything considering, I mean, I'm sure there are probably some
Yeah.
internal changes that they've made. And did you ever turn sets away? Was that something that
I
happened where you're
mean,
like, I can't accept that one?
yes. Um under two different circumstances. Um and one of the rules was we were not allowed to buy anything that was currently being sold by Lego, any set that was not retired, currently being sold that was new in box, because then you have to worry about theft and you have to worry about buying stolen property. Um,
Okay.
so, if it's a new set that Lego is still producing and they're bringing it in new in box, I have no way of knowing you haven't just, shoplifted that from the local box store. And so it has to be built. It has to be in the used condition. It cannot be sealed in a box. Um, and then the other side of that would be, and people would try to get around that, because you say, you have to specify it has to be in used condition, has to be built, because people would come in and they would just have like opened the box and cut the bag and built, one step of the first bag. And in that condition, it really becomes a judgment call about it. And it's so hard, and it's really hard to teach, and it's hard to like train your staff on what to know in those circumstances.
Yeah, I bet.
How do you judge? How do you know? Because sometimes people would come in and be like, and their kid would be there. Like, I bought it for my kid and they got halfway through one bag and it's too difficult. But now we can't return it to the store. And I'm going to be straightforward with how much I can offer you, because now it's incomplete. I don't know if that kid lost one brick in that bag that's exclusive to that set. That happened with a Dobby set that came in. They built 2 bags out of it, and then their kid got bored and brought it in. And I made the mistake of offering it based on completeness, on the presumption of completeness. And that was the one and only time I ever did that, because it was missing one brick that was exclusive to that set. And I had to go and pick a brick and order that part, because it was a new set. It was a brand new mold, brand new piece, brand new color. And so I never did that again, because you never know. It happens on sets all the time. Lego will do that. It'll be a new color. But it happened on we got the big brick built Hermione and Harry Potter set. And there were a couple pieces missing in the middle that were specific colors that we had to like swap out. And then you make a little note on the back of the tag with the price. You make a little note on the bottom of it that says color swapped pieces. So when a customer comes in to buy that used set, they can see that on the tag and know that I'm not like, that set is not perfect. It is missing. Or, if it was missing a figure, that's one of the things. All of the tickets say, this may be incomplete. We do our best. But when you're buying sets from somebody and not disassembling them, you have no way of knowing whether they've swapped out a piece, or it's missing some internal piece, something like that. So when somebody's coming in and selling, like, you have to do your best judgment on that. And sometimes it would just be a matter of giving an absurdly, ridiculously low, if I felt like they were trying to get around those restrictions. And oftentimes it would be the bag was cut open and not a single piece was built, or just the box was open, but all the bags were sealed. I'm going to give just an absurdly low offer that they're going to say no to, and walk away from.
Right.
And a lot of the time that's just a way to avoid any kind of drama, any kind of possible issues within the store itself. And then you would just tell them, because of the condition of it, because of, the one bag open, because it's a newer set, I'm not going to be able to sell it for you. You come up with a reason, which sounds contrary to being open and detailed and what's the word I'm looking for? Forthright, right? There are circumstances in which you have to make a judgment call about whether that person is bringing in a stolen set.
Right.
Then you kind of figure out a way to lowball them as much as possible, because you just don't want to be buying it, because you can't prove it. You're not going to call the police every time somebody comes in. By the time they get that, they're going to be gone. And there's really no recourse that a store can do when it comes in a situation like that. It's unfortunate that it happens, and we have kind of protocols to deal with that. But that's also a store by store thing. I'm going to do everything I possibly can not to buy that. And part of it is also small community. You start to recognize regulars. And when they've
Right.
been in a set once, it might be okay. But a couple months later, they come in again. Okay, this time we're not going to do that. And so,
Right.
sometimes it just be a matter of, I'm so sorry, we're not buying right now. You find ways to get around that. And we have all
Right.
the paperwork. Everybody signs the paperwork. We ask for ID. They have to sign and attest. We would have people come in and say, you have to be 18 to buy. And so kids would come in, 17, 16, 17-year-old. And I'd be like, I'm so sorry. Like, you have to come back with a parent because they have to
Yeah.
sign. They have to sign on the bottom attesting that they have the right to sell it. And so, those were always the hard ones to turn away a kid. And just be like, I'm sorry, you got to come back. You got to, especially like a 17-year-old,
Right.
or, somebody that doesn't have an ID. And then you'd see them come back with a friend or somebody. But that's such a case by case basis. Most of the time
Right.
I wouldn't really turn anything away based on the set itself, the buy itself. There were some times that I would, like, I know it's not going to be a good, like, if it's a bunch of bulk, I'm and it's a bunch of mega blocks mixed in or something, I'm going to be straightforward and just be like, this is only that you've got this big giant tub, but it's less than half Lego. So you're going to have a lower offer. And oftentimes in a case like that, I'm sorry, this is really, really dirty and it's going to be time consuming, really low offer. And oftentimes that was enough to, you explain that to the customer, and that was enough for them to go, okay, I understand that. Like, I'm going to, either take the offer or, take it and clean it, or take it and whatever. So, but rarely
Right.
actually just said, no, I don't want to buy this, not outside of those specific contexts.
That makes sense. And it sounds like I mean, it sounds like I think you've said this yesterday, but it's, repetition that you start to learn all
Yeah.
of the different sets and the pieces. I guess bricks is probably the better word to use. How long had you been working for and owning and been with Bricks and Minifigs when you took on Brian's dad's collection?
Oh boy. I should know these dates by now. So I managed for a year before I bought. So I'd say, like, I want to say like a year and a half ish. Um, yeah, somewhere around, oh, I'm trying to, like, yeah, about a year and a half, a year and 8 months, somewhere around there. Yeah.
So you were pretty seasoned by
Yeah.
that point to
Yeah.
know the sets and to know, what you were comfortable with,
Yeah.
and then, as you were the franchise owner with this Bricks and
Yeah.
Minifigs taking on this consignment, which I'm literally, as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, you guys, it sounds like, tried to make a very like clean split, very cordial, very just go your own separate direction from Bricks and Minifigs. And here you are still talking about it like a couple years later, and has this taken over like the entirety of your life at this point?
It's some days, yes. Some days it's, I'm watching every video I can, or I'm like today doing, finishing this one up with you and then going live with another creator and then doing another thing. Some days it feels like it's all day. The kind of the week and a half that we did the CoffeeZilla interview, that felt like it was all I could think about. And then some days it's like I work a full-time job. I'm just like, it's life. Some days there's no updates, there's no news. And so then I'm okay, now I'm gonna, binge watch whatever show I'm currently watching and take my mind off of this a bit. And then some days it feels like there's an update after an update after an update, and I'm trying to follow everything. So it's like, it's both. It's, you know, when you're dealing with the legal system, everything is very, very slow. And
Yeah.
it's this, you know, hurry up. But then sometimes there's so much content coming out, I'm going, slow down. Or there's, you know, I'm off for half a day and I'm watching one live, and then there's a video notification of another channel going live. And then there's no, and I'm like, can you guys coordinate so that they're not all at the same time? Because I, you know, I like to watch, and I'm often in the comments and answering questions and stuff. So yeah, it's weirdly both.
Which is crazy because it didn't have to get to this
No,
point. And
it
that's
didn't.
one thing that's like, it's crazy. So the whole reason this got into the media is because I think you had said this at the very beginning, that the way that the store had been, for my own terminology, ripped away from you, not the
Seized
way it was
is,
supposed to be.
yeah,
Seized. That's
seized.
correct. Seized.
Yeah.
Like, the way that everything, what was the expectation that you had when you guys went to corporate and were like, you know what, we're thinking about moving out of the country. We are thinking about selling. Like, what you were expecting to happen, or what were you hoping to happen?
So, I mean, it was one of two things, because we were within a 5-year franchise agreement, and they would have had every right to say, like, you have 3 years left on your franchise agreement. No, you can't sell. And then we don't move, and none of this happens. I
Right.
continue operating the store. You know, Brian's consignment ends. None of this happens. What I was hoping would happen is either, and this is because it was a corporate owned location when I started managing there. What I hoped would happen is that either corporate would purchase the location back from me, or that corporate would find another buyer to buy me out. That was, you know, so there was three possible things that could happen. And that is not what ended up happening. They led me to believe that they were going to line up another buyer for me. But in actuality of what they did was came in with no notice, with Brandon, and said, like, hand me your keys. You are done. With absolutely no notice, no warning whatsoever, no ability to take an inventory, no ability to reconcile any of my sales, any of my books. Like, I couldn't even clean out my office. There was no time. It's been a year and a half, and I have still not been provided with any inventory. So when this, you know, one of those things within this narrative is, people will say, well, why didn't you tell Brian before you sold the store? I'm like, one, I did not sell the store. I've received not a penny. It's cost
Right.
us at this point almost $60,000 a year and a half later to get where we are within the legal system in our lawsuit against them. I have not been paid a penny. And two, like, I was going to inform Brian, I had made the first step of what I expected to be a several month process.
Yeah.
And I did not think I needed, like, you know, from my perspective, our consignment was set to end in 2 months. That year agreement was set to end in 2 months. And my intention was to go back to Brian and say, like, actually have an answer. Say, I'm selling the location. My husband and I are moving. Corporate is either buying all of the inventory, including that, and I'm paying you out of that sale. Or, like, corporate is buying, somebody else is buying, but they don't want to buy your inventory. And so I am returning it all to you. But going and saying, like, and maybe I should have. He was supposed to come into the store on the 15th, the next day, to pick up his check. And so I had a meeting with corporate the morning of the 14th, where they said, you know, we think the ideal thing to do is for us to, like buy back the location and let you out of it. And I thought, this is good. They're at least going to let me out of the agreement. We have somebody that has been interested in purchasing a store. He's going to come by tonight and just take a look around on the morning of the 14th. And then on the evening of the 14th, Brandon shows up. And so my intention was Brandon was coming on the 14th. I was going to mention it to Brian on the 15th when he came to pick up the check and just be like, just to give you a heads up, I still don't have answers. I don't know what's going to happen, but like, do you want them back? Do you want me to sell them as part of it? We had not gotten to the point where that conversation felt like it was going to be anything other than just like, hey, a heads up with no information. I wanted to be able to go to him. And this is all like in hindsight, I can go back and to in hindsight, I would go back to the day of the 8th when I called Kai and said, can we schedule a meeting to discuss this? And I never make that phone call. Instead, I make that phone call to Brian and I say, come to the store. Like I'm terminating our consignment agreement. Come pick up everything else. Let me cut you a check for whatever we owe you. And then in hindsight, I clear out every bit of inventory in that fucking store outside of his collection. I clear out the cases, the electronics, the cameras, the shelving. I do what I should have done, what corporate would have put me in the corner, like in hindsight.
Yeah.
I would have cleared out. I would have done what the previous owner before me did to that location and cleared out every single thing in that store and sold it on my own and then told corporate, I'm here we go. I'm paying you out from the profits of that. And I'm leaving. Had I known they were not going to give me, had I known they were not going to abide by their own franchise agreement, I would have gone about it. They treated us as though that was what I was going to do instead of treating us as a business as a business partnership. They treated that night and that takeover under the presumption that if I was going to do that, why would I have had that first meeting? Ammon even says, we were prepared for a hostile takeover. If you thought you needed to do a hostile takeover, why would I reach out to you to let you know? If I was going to take everything out of the store, file bankruptcy, do any of that, flee the country, why would I reach out and let you know? So they treated us under the presumption that that's what we were going to do when we went about it the way the franchise agreement says we have to do it. And their response to that was to violate state law and federal law and their own written agreement. So it's just, all of this could have been prevented. Every single bit of this could have been prevented November 14th of 2024. Every single step after that has been contrary to what needed to happen to prevent it from going public and all of this happening. There were easy steps that could have been taken. I mean, you watch I presume you see the Kaiser Police Department's reports on this, right? When the Kaiser Police Department is saying very clearly, our assessment of this is that you knew about the consignment agreement, you knew what you had, you intentionally withheld it. I would like to, I'm never going to get the chance. I doubt it, but I would really like to ask Ammon. This might get me in a little bit of trouble, but did you lie to the Kaiser police, or did you commit perjury by lying on your sworn affidavit in the gag order? Which one? Because who is it that did the BAM map went through and their 100th update was every single, every lie they've told. It's one or the other. Yep. Y'all either lied to the police or so every step of the way. But then we see their public response to this, which you and I recognize based on our own previous history of what happens when somebody portrays themselves as the perpetual victim. Why are they doing this to us? Josh
Yep.
was even like, we'd give the sets back, but he was mean. And so I didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
I'm I'm so sorry. It just cracks me up. Like I know it's so bad, but like it just reminds me of the response of a child. Like every
yeah,
time that like when
yeah,
Reckless Ben makes the comparison to
yeah,
this being like dealing with
yeah.
toddlers, I'm like,
It's
for
literally a toddler in
real.
a grocery store splayed out on the floor throwing a tantrum. The
It
thing
is.
that gets me, and I can't decide whether to be pissed or like whether to scream or laugh, is these are the same people that publicly have called me a bad business person and an
Yep.
inept operator of the store, and said that they were worried about me not representing the brand correctly. These are the same people that have said that. Like the lack of self-reflection is, my God, do a lot of people in this country just fucking need therapy. We would solve
Yeah.
a lot of problems in this country. I've said this before. We would solve a lot of problems in this country if every single person, before they graduated from high school, were required to attend 1 year of therapy and serve 1 year in a customer service role. That's it.
I
We solve
love that.
every problem in this country.
Literally. Yes. I always say I either customer service or I always throw in like caregiving roles because like
Yeah.
that'll humble
Yeah.
a person.
Yeah.
When you work with a person who is
Yeah.
either elderly and maybe has dementia or
Yeah.
the developmentally disabled, like adults,
Yeah.
children out there, like y'all, I'm telling you,
I'm
yes,
telling, we
which
solve so many problems. Go to
it
fucking
would.
therapy and work in a job where people throw food at you. That's that's how we fix our
It's
society.
well, exactly, but it's this behavior that is exactly why I was so excited to speak with you and why this story has been so fascinating to
Yeah.
me because this is where I feel like we start to get into some of the territory that I talk about.
Yeah.
Like I said before, y'all, like I talk about anti-MLM content, but it isn't even the business side of MLMs. And yes, I understand that there's some legalities and things. I'm not an expert, but it's the way that people are treated by these people in power, these people in these large corporations. Because then what happens after all of this? They go on this massive, massive smear campaign about you, and everybody else gets to control the narrative about you and your life. And
Yeah.
when you talked to me about that, I was not only like shocked, but fascinated because what is that like? And you've told me a little bit about it. So
Yeah.
whatever you're comfortable with sharing, what is that like to have your like life, not maybe not the entirety of your life, but the way people perceive you is solely based on other people, like Reckless Ben, like
So
Bricks and Minifigs.
so there's two sides of that, and I'm gonna reference two different people. Ben's not here to correct me on who I'm about to quote. My Ben. Too many Bens in this story. So Sophia Bush. Are you familiar with Sophia Bush, the actress?
I am not.
I love her. Listen, if they make a Netflix movie of this, that's who I want to play me. She is, I adore her. I'm gonna paraphrase what I heard her say in an interview. You cannot allow somebody else to write your own story. You like, I am not the story they have written about me. And that
Right.
goes across everything in my life. I am not the story that my parents wrote about me. I am not the person that we talked about this a little bit, right? You're within the context of a family, your siblings see you through the lens of your parents.
Yeah.
And your extended family, they see you through the perception of how your parents treat you. And so it took me a
Absolutely.
really long time to get to a place, and a lot of therapy, to get to a place where I realized that I was allowing who my mother told the world I was to define me. And not just to define me, but to limit me. And when you're raised by somebody who displays narcissistic traits and somebody who is like, my mother was deeply ashamed of my neurodivergence. That sums up our relationship. My mother was so deeply ashamed to have a neurodivergent child because
sad.
I was perceived as different. And different for her was unsafe. And this is the part where we're going to go a little off topic here. Shockingly, I know. But I have a feeling your audience, like, this is such different content that I've been doing. And so it's actually really nice to talk about the other stuff that I'm actually really passionate about outside of the shitty way I lost my job.
Yes.
When you, like, my mother was raised in an abusive household, right? My mother, I didn't find out until after she died, actually, that, like, my mother was raised by an abusive mother, and hurt people, right? Trauma,
Oh yeah.
generational trauma is a thing. And my mother learned that if you are different, that is bad and that is unsafe. And so she structured her life. She had she was the poster, my family was the poster child for upper middle class nuclear family, right? The house in the country, the 3.5 kids, the minivan. We had all the newest electronics when they came out. I grew up around animals. I grew up unbelievably privileged, and I know that. And at the same time, I grew up in an abusive household. And trying to reconcile those two things when you grow up in a small community and all people see is the pillars of the community that your parents are, they don't see the manipulative, emotionally abusive mother or the alcoholic father. They only see the public persona that they put on. Your story becomes, there is something wrong with you. That's why your parents don't like you. And when you grow up in a small town, that becomes your story. There is something wrong with you. And as a child, you internalize that deeply. And that becomes your core belief system. I am fundamentally unlovable because there is something wrong with me. And it took therapy to switch that around to, my mother was incapable of loving me because for her, different was unsafe. And because she never addressed any of that, it then passed down to me. And I in turn, trying to break those cycles, raised my daughter of, do not be ashamed. And now today, both myself and my husband and my kid and my stepson and children that I encountered in my job and children that people we encounter at comic conventions and pride events, do not be ashamed of the things that make you different. That's like that is how I operate every day. When you spend 40 years being ashamed of the way your brain chemicals work, being ashamed of that and thinking that is a fundamental flaw that makes you unlovable, it puts you in a very unique position where it makes it very easy to hear the criticism and the perception and the story that people tell about you. And in the context of this whole greater thing, I have to remind myself that, one, I am not what Matt and Ammon and Josh and Brandon or Reckless Ben or Brian, like, I am not what any of them project onto me, tell the
Right.
world that I am. None of them know me well enough to know everything behind me, everything in my experience, everything in my life, everything in my own head, all the work that I've done. Like, none of these people on the internet leaving the comments, judging me in my business, um, judging how I handled the situation. They're all coming at it from like a snapshot of a specific moment in my life, like one span, one specific time period, and then judging it and perceiving it from hindsight. It's really easy to
Yeah.
say, this is what you should have done. How many of you can look back at specific moments of your life and know, like, at that time, like, we can all look back and go, that's what I should have done. I was
Right.
talking to you about my abusive ex. If they say Braveheart is their favorite movie, that was the moment I should have gotten up and walked away. And I would have
So
saved
true.
myself. I would have saved myself that relationship. Like, but I feel like it's so unfair. It's not unfair. It's human nature.
Yeah.
You can judge me for what you can see in hindsight should have happened, the decisions you believe, like all of that. But
Right.
that's you. It has no place with me. It doesn't change. It doesn't change me. It doesn't change how I see myself. I can look back at my life and think about things that I wish I would have done differently. But you and I talked about shame. And
Yeah.
I firmly believe that shame, particularly people that grew up in our positions, shame can be the most harmful and the hardest thing to move past. And
Yeah.
I believe you can address things, and as soon as when you address them and you learn from them and you grow, shame has no place existing in your life. Holding on to shame only continues to damage. I held on to that. I held on to shame about myself, shame about how my brain worked, that my brain was so fucked up. My mother, the one person on the planet that was supposed to love me, just couldn't.
Yeah.
And she was my adoptive mother. So then we don't even throw in the first mother. That clear, like, that's a whole different,
Oh,
um,
yeah. Right. That just, oh, that's so
but
messed up.
right, like, shame is so damaging coming out of an abusive relationship, whether it's a cult or domestic violence or any of those things. We don't talk about it, and we don't talk about it because we hold the shame. Right?
Right.
You cannot continue punishing yourself for acting or behaving in ways that made sense at the time, or you didn't have the tools to do something differently. Or, women will hang on to the shame and not talk about domestic violence because society is like, well, why didn't you leave the first time he hit you? But
Oh, yep.
we know why women don't leave the first time. Like, we know why. And
Yeah.
holding on to shame for not leaving that first time and taking out the context of everything else, you're only telling a little part of my story right now. Like, you're only seeing
Right.
little tiny, you're seeing 1 year. You're not even, you're seeing 1 day within 1 year. And I'm almost 46 years old. So, like, all this, what's happening, it's viral, it's all over everywhere, but it's a teeny tiny fraction of my lived experience. And
Yeah.
so I have to try really hard, and it's a struggle every time I read those comments, to remember that, like, it's one sentence in so far the story of my life. And it's such a small that it's not and then you have to distance and not take any of it like personally. And like, it's a struggle all the time. I see the negative comments and the hurtful comments and the death threats. And then, um,
Yeah.
but I try to constantly remind myself. And then Ben, I don't remember I don't remember. It's a quote from somebody, but I don't remember who it is, who says, like, the other side of that is that, like, people will dislike you regardless of you. There's always going to be people that are going to find something to criticize. There's always going to be people that just aren't going to like you. In the position of being a woman, it's, she talks too much. I wish she would let her husband talk more. Her voice is shrill. I don't like that. Or, there's going to be people that don't like my earrings right now because why do we have to bring politics into it? Or why do you have to bring the trauma into it? That's unrelated. No, it's not. It's all part of the greater context of it. It's all related. So there's always going to be people that don't like you, but, like, at least let them not like me for me and not the story that they are either being told of me or telling of me themselves. So it can be really hard, and it's a constant struggle, but I just have to keep reminding myself it's a tiny little part of my overall story. And as interconnected as we all feel within the context of this thing, there's so much of my life and so much of me and so much of my past that goes into who I am that we don't really know anybody.
Right. Exactly. There's so much of a parasocial relationship.
I was about
I feel
to
like
say, it really is. Yeah.
Because none of us, like, I don't know. I mean, I can watch a creator every single day, but I also have the conscious understanding I don't know that person. And I think it's easy for people to sit behind a screen and say all those critical things. So first of all, I'm sorry, but the pride flag is not political. So if that's what you believe, sorry, not sorry. You're not gonna like me. That's fine. But it's infuriating that people, like, it's easy for them to sit behind a screen and say things about somebody that they realistically, one, they don't know, but two, their lives are also not under a microscope. And all of this, like, you coming here, which we're so grateful for your time, is your choice, and you're choosing to open these things up. And for people to feel to feel comfortable enough to say, oh, well, you should have done X, Y, and Z. Fantastic. When you're put in that position, let's talk about how you handled it, because it's so easy. And then also, like, for people to say that trauma is not related. That is why I'm so fascinated by this, because it is traumatic. Your life is now national news. Literally, like, my parents, who don't know, they're not online. I'm chronically online. They are not. They know the situation, probably because of me and my siblings, but they know about it because this is a huge story. And I personally am under the belief that you can't be under this kind of scrutiny and not feel a level of trauma, especially when somebody as powerful as these men, and let's be real, a majority of people in this story are men, and the powerful men like the McNuffs, like Josh Johnson and Brandon Best want to claim to be, these men have control over a narrative, and they want to inflict that shame because they want people like you to feel silent. And I'm sorry. I'm so grateful that you're not. I think that they chose the wrong woman to fuck with personally. But it's so much bigger than I think people want to admit, because yes, you can take the look at, all of this and only see the business aspect, but there is such a, like, you're a human. You're feeling all of these things, and it's your lived experience.
I'm getting Google alerts for my own name. And that's something that I have a TikTok video that has like 700,000 views. That's not something that the human brain is designed to be able to understand. I was complaining to Ben yesterday I was driving home and there was a car behind me. I had slowed to let a big truck merge in so that they could turn in the turning lane that was coming up. So I, decent human, like, I'm going to let you in. And the car behind me honked at me. And then, so we get to the next light, and I mean, like, it was yellow. I could have made it through, but also, like, there's a neurodivergent pettiness that kicks in sometimes. And I'm like, I'm in no hurry. So I stopped, and he was not happy about that, because then he honked and went into the other lane. And then you're stuck at a light with the truck with and you can feel the eyes. And before this, I would have made like direct eye contact and given him the like super sarcastic thumbs up, because I don't do the flipping off anymore. I found out that it pisses people off even more if you're like give them the super aggressive thumbs up, because then they feel ridiculous. I can't do that anymore, because I don't know if it's somebody that's going to recognize my face, and then that's going to be the next, like, right? I can't, like, you feel like you can't have bad days, or you can't like lash out. Relic can talk about people in this situation. I'm a bit envious because he can say things about people in this that I can't say.
Right.
And part of that is like, because I'm a woman, you perceive certain language coming differently. And part of it with Relic specific is because I am like within the context of the lawsuit. But like, I want to be able to have a bad day and like honk my horn and flip you off if you are driving in front of me really fucking slow. Like but then you feel like you can't do that. But then there's this other really messed up side of that, of going, how is that my life? How is that even a consideration in my life? We went to see a movie in Corvallis. Walking through the parking lot, somebody in the parking lot yelled out, like, fuck bricks and minifigs. And in Corvallis, at a movie theater parking lot, and Ben and I are both going, what is happening here? And to have your life be under this microscope is like, I don't. And so it does, like, you develop the parasocial relationships, and it can be a really positive, uplifting thing, because I know there are so many people out there that are supportive and that are doing amazing work to uncover all of the stuff behind all of this, and are being really supportive, and are donating to the GoFundMe and buying our merchandise. And all of that stuff is amazing. But there's also the other side of that, the wildly inappropriate sexual comments and messages. The death threats and vulgar language. And so, like, there's, anytime you're dealing with stuff like social media and the internet, there's the good and the bad. And there's no preparing for it. There's no handbook about how to navigate it. But when this all started, I was sitting back quietly and, with our lawyer, and just saying, just sit back and but there's a certain point where the discourse, when it is revolving around you, and it is openly lying about you, and setting this precedent, this narrative that I don't think it is, like, it's not humane to expect somebody to just sit there and listen to it. And, then we had to make a choice of, like, do you come forward? Because I could have stayed in obscurity. I could have, hidden my social media accounts and not gone on any of these things, not been in the comments, not been, Brian's been very, very quiet. I could have just kind of remained in obscurity and waited for the legal process to make its way through. Um, but instead I chose, if you're going to be talking about me, talk about me. Know who I
Yeah.
am, at least as much as I can share with you. Um, if you're going to dislike me for who I actually am instead of the stories that people have told you about me. That's really just, for good or bad, we're in that position now. At some point, maybe unconsciously made the choice that I need to step forward and defend my own name from people that were throwing it out there and demonstrably lying about me. Um, and whatever then comes from that, I have to be comfortable with that choice. And I'm sure, like,
Right.
at some point, a couple years from now, when this is all settled and it's worked its way through the legal system, like, I'll vanish back into obscurity. That's just like, that's the nature of how these viral cycles kind of work. I have no great big desire to step out and have this be a thing. So like eventually I'll vanish back into obscurity again, but like for now
Yeah.
I'll take, there are some things that I enjoy about this, like having a conversation with you, being able to do this and talk about stuff outside of just the context of this little thing is really nice. I really kind of appreciate that. Um,
How has your life changed since Reckless Ben got involved?
yeah,
I mean, this whole thing, I think you had mentioned to me when we sat down before, was it was a whole year before anybody even knew about
yeah,
this. And so, how long
over
before,
over a year.
over a
Um,
year, when
yeah,
did you learn about
because
Reckless Ben?
so they took the store in November of 2024. And then uh Reckless Ben, we spoke in like March or April. But then his video didn't come out until um like March or April of 2025. Um but then like his video didn't come out until just like recently. And so there was, I might have my time. When did I first speak to? I don't remember. But yeah,
That's
it's
okay.
been, a year and a half now. And uh, there was 8 months or whatever of knowing he was releasing the video, but not knowing what the video was going to be about. Not knowing how it was going to be portrayed on there. Um, and that's a bit nerve wracking. Same thing with the CoffeeZilla video, because we filmed that over the span of like a week and a half or so, and then just like not knowing and not seeing the other side. Because with the Reckless Ben stuff, I watched all the stuff with corporate and with Josh, all of that, right at this, like right along with everybody else. I never saw any of that
Wow.
beforehand. The only thing I saw was the first, like, he sent me the first like 10-14 minutes where it's just like me. But I
Wow.
watched the rest of it with everybody else. And then it was same thing with the CoffeeZilla video. All the his interview, like all of his stuff with everybody else, we watched when that video came out.
Wow.
And there, it's like, it's nerve-wracking waiting for the videos. That's the really nerve-wracking part. The lives are actually almost easier because there's no waiting, there's no
Yeah.
wondering how it's going to be cut together, how it's going to be, like, there's none of that.
Yeah.
But there's like, not always. The very first live that I did was with ACOB, and it was right after Ben's video dropped. It was the first appearance of Matt McNeff came on the live, which I didn't realize was
That's
happening.
right.
That was like my first introduction to it, and I was like, did this motherfucker set me up? Like, and then I watched him like later talk about the sequence of events, and then we met at Brick World and talked to him, and I was like, okay, that's fine. But the lives are almost easier because it's immediate feedback too from the comments,
Yeah.
from the other people. But yeah, it's the other thing. Like videos come out, and then I am in the comments because people are talking about you, right? It's as much as I want to
Yeah.
be like, I don't need to know what you're saying. That's between like you and your keyboard. I'm also like human, and I'm like, people are talking. Imagine knowing everybody's gossiping about like the hot viral story, but it's you. And I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
want to be reading all the comments, but I fucking
Right.
am because I can't help it.
Right. And you're curious what people say. I mean, I truthfully could not imagine. Like,
Oh,
I truthfully, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think many people will see this. I hope they do, but I've also just never seen like anything from my like I don't envision myself being seen to that extent. So I couldn't even
nobody
imagine for
does.
you being
Yeah,
seen by everybody.
now because there's
Yeah.
always like it's the next statement, right? It's the next statement that they put out, or it's the next video, because there were definitely like there's been times with it with me, like it's like you're yelling into the void. Like the first
Yeah.
after Reckless Ben's video, it was like, I am not fucking Amanda. Like I get that you guys think we look alike. I'm not her. Because so many of the comments after my Ben and I made our first video were like, okay, but if you're like the victim, why would you call the police on him? And I'm like, that's not me. So
Yeah.
the thing, and then it was like, well, consignments weren't allowed. Well, like we know that's a lie. Like we've proven. So it's like it keeps changing. And it's the, it's the diversion tactic, right? What's the next thing? So like right now, I think everything's pretty concise. I think like the Kaiser police report really just kind of like, uh,
Yeah.
a little cherry on the cake. I enjoyed that. But like, yeah, no, right now it's pretty good. Um, we'll see when the next video comes out, when the next public statement comes out, and
That'll
you
be
never know,
fascinating.
what it's gonna be. So
Right. And that's
I mean,
scary. Well,
it's
I'll
like
make sure this is
after,
not scary.
right? Well, like after we're done recording this, I'm gonna go do a live with a creator who has done like a deep, like technical investigation into my phone and all the pictures and videos I took that night. And watching,
Wow.
like they already did a live where they went through, like, here's the camera on it and the processing thing. Watching somebody do that on your phone and pictures that you've taken is like weird. And then going back and doing a live with them talking about the one that they've already, like there's a like a it's like it's the Matryoshka dolls of like it's so absurd. And then,
Yeah.
I'm going to jump on YouTube, and there are some videos that I'll go back and read like the newest comments. Like the CoffeeZilla video is still getting about every week or so. I go back and I read the newest comments because it's people just coming into the story, because people
Oh,
come
wow.
into this from such different perspectives. And that, like, his video has like 7 million views. And that's a number that I
Wow.
can't even,
That's
like,
a
you
lot
can't
of
even,
people.
right? Like you can't even wrap your brain around those kind of numbers. But then I still have to, like, I'm going to go in the comments and I'm going to see what the new things are being. It's insane. It's just,
And
it's insane.
hopefully this
But
hasn't been scary for you.
it's just, it's one of those things of like, did I think my life was going to become a public, David versus Goliath taking down the big corporation? No. Am I going to
Yeah.
shut the fuck up and walk away? Absolutely not. That is not who I am. Like
Real.
that's no. If you're going to keep lying about me, I'm going to keep setting the record straight. Like if you're going to keep dodging accountability and saying one thing in your press statements, but then your actions are the opposite, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not a sit down, shut up kind of woman. And I don't make it a habit to back down from bullies.
I love that. Because I mean, and they're bullies. They are the biggest of bullies. And I mean, number one, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me as much. And you've given me a lot of your
Are you
time. I am so grateful.
No,
Really, I am.
It was fantastic.
But it's fun, and it's
Yeah.
also so nice to see people like you who are willing to share their story and this is why I try my best to offer people a platform to share stories
Yeah.
because like these types of stories, they might look a little different whether somebody left a cult, a deviant relationship, or in this situation, a corporation, in my humble opinion, is bullying you and so many other people. Sharing stories can hopefully help people see that it's important to speak out. It's
Yeah.
so important to keep sharing because
Yeah.
otherwise we're going to be sitting with our trauma just in our rooms and no one's going to be really aware of the situation. And I mean, if it hadn't been for other people sharing their experiences with leaving cults, I don't know that I would have shared mine. And sharing mine has like not to like I'm never really the person to like toot my own horn, but I love seeing when people reach out to me and they're like, I left because of
Yeah.
somebody's story that you helped share. I
Yeah.
left because of this, or this opened my eyes
Yeah.
to this was a toxic relationship, or this was bad. And
Yeah.
it's like that's why I am so grateful to have been able to contribute to sharing your story because I think that there's somebody out there who is going to relate to you specifically and they're going to feel strength in themselves to maybe not share publicly, but maybe tell somebody, or at the
Yeah.
very least, not feel ashamed of what they went through
Yeah.
because it, I mean, bad people are bad people.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that anybody is wrong, or a lot of times I hear people say, "Well, I was so dumb." No,
No.
bad people are good at
Yeah.
manipulation.
Yeah.
They're going to do that regardless.
Yeah. And it's the shame, right? It all cycles back. They all cycle back to shame. Don't allow what society tells you should be ashamed of to silence you. That's the thing. If you stayed in a domestic violence relationship, if you're in one right now and you cannot pick up your phone and text a friend and tell them what is happening because society tells you should be ashamed for not having already left, fuck them. Like that's if anybody takes anything away from all of this. If your community and your family and your friends are telling you your parents aren't really abusive, you should be lucky, you should consider yourself lucky that you have them, but you're also sitting in a position where you know they are abusive, but you feel ashamed because you feel like you aren't being abused enough, fuck them. Like that's the thing. If anybody is watching this and taking anything away from it, don't let other people tell you how your story should be written. Who you are right now, where you are right now, nobody can tell you that's who you have to stay. That's where you have to stay. And nobody can also like do that for you. But if a little tiny thing of what we have talked about today helps with like one small half step toward making the movement that you have to make to go on to live that life or to leave that situation or to reach out to somebody, then that makes everything else worthwhile. And that goes for so many things that I do in my life. Interacting with a neurodivergent kid, whether it was at the store or at a comic convention, if that tiny little spot in time moment with me stays in their memories and acts as a defense, like as a shield against all the criticism they're going to get in their life, and this one shining moment, like this one moment of this person didn't think I was weird, this person enjoyed, then that's a good use of my voice. If there's a queer kid out there that doesn't know how to tell their family, or doesn't know how to define who they are, or is afraid of that, or like any of those things, you just hope that there's a tiny little thing, maybe one sentence that you've said, one part of your story that sticks in somebody else's mind. And you never go, like, I never think I'm going to change somebody's life, but maybe we're going to cycle it back around to where this all started. Maybe something that I'm saying, some part of my experience, some sentence, is a little tiny brick that they're going to put, that's then going to build on the next step that they're going to make, the next change they're going to have in their life. And that's a worthwhile reason to sit here and have these conversations and talk about it.
I love it so much.
It's a privilege.
Brick by brick.
Right? It's a privilege. It's put me in a position of privilege. If it gives a little bit of courage to the other current franchise owners, or to, their customers watching that then think, like, maybe all of those things, like, you're just like a little tiny piece in a greater thing. And so, like, thank you for letting me come on and ramble over the span of, over the span of 3 days, it's been like 6 hours, 8 hours, I think.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot, and it's been fantastic. And it's because part of it is you are so easy to talk to.
Oh, thank you.
And that's amazing. And part of it is it's so nice to be able to talk about, like, other parts of my story. Which is, like, it's really nice. Other than, like, this one night on my, like, this one tiny part of one job, right?
Right.
Not to, like, minimize everything, but, it's kind of nice.
Right.
Yeah, so it's been fantastic.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. And honestly, you are welcome back anytime if you want to come and talk to us about trauma. Or sometimes I have people who come, like, together, and we talk about our trauma together. It's always a good time. But I'm really excited because I feel like this is really going to help somebody. And like I always say to everybody out there, if you guys want to come and share a story, please reach out. I am opening up my calendar. I'm back from vacation. I'm hopefully getting to do this a little bit more often. But please reach out to me on Instagram at Steap Talk Podcast. Steap is spelled STEAP because we keep the T in the talk. As well as you can still reach out to me. I haven't changed my email yet. I will get there, I promise, but it's still DANI@xsandtpodcast.com. You guys can find me on YouTube and Spotify and everywhere else that podcasts are heard. We will catch you guys in the next episode. Where can we find you, Chrys? How can we support you on your journey?
You can find me just about all the social media platforms under Chrys Gorman. And I keep it pretty consistent on all of them: YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Don't ask me to go on Twitter. Don't ask me to call it X. I won't do it. You can also reach out to notapipepublishing@gmail.com to contact. And yeah, there's link trees in all of my bios. I'm lurking somewhere.
Perfect. And
perpetually
also,
online.
No, me too. I will link your GoFundMe too. Is that still something that can be found in your bios as well on Instagram?
Yeah. It's been
Perfect.
fantastic because the legal fees are astronomical. And that's something that's an entirely different conversation. Yeah.
So if you can donate, definitely do. If you can't donate and you feel it in your heart to share, please do, because this is, I know a lot of people in my audience specifically would love to see an actual corporation have to take accountability, regardless of who it is. If there is a way to hold them accountable, we absolutely should. So, with that being said, we will catch you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much again, Chrys.
Thank
We'll
you
see you
so
next
much.
time.
Thank you.